If you work for the Catholic Church and want to transform the culture of your parish and put more souls in the pews, we are here to help. I'm John Kahns, and this is the Catholic Ministry Professionals Podcast, your leadership development podcast for Catholic churches. Today, we're here with Zach Rawson, the Director of Youth Ministry and Faith Formation for the Diocese of Winona in God's country, Minnesota. He has stepped into this role at a time when many rural parishes are undergoing a big shift, moving from individual parishes to groupings, sometimes with shared leadership structures. And that reality does raise big questions about how to manage youth ministry, about how to manage the formation process in these complex new parish families. And so today we're going to have a great conversation. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, John. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is great. Well, we were just getting to know each other a little bit before the podcast, but you are in my old stomping grounds, the Diocese of Winona. That's where I grew up. You actually know my mother, Pam Kunz. Shout out.
I do.
One of the greats. She's wonderful, delightful, and just like a veteran in the diocese. She's been kind of a mainstay in a structure there and a bulwark and pillar of faith for me as well. And so I'm going to ask you, though, you're stepping into this kind of new position where you are seeing this transition kind of play out and wading into it yourself. But before that, I want you to share a little bit about your ministry and the work that you do up there in Minnesota so that our listeners can get a grasp of the scope and nature of the day-to-day work that you're a part of.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in the Twin Cities, and then I moved to Rochester. So a lot of my experiences with like suburban, some urban areas, but I'm here in the Diocese of Winona, Rochester, and my role here is really to do my best to support, train, encourage, and give resources to all those who are working in our parishes who are responsible for the formation or discipleship of our children and youth. So all the way down to, maybe preschool-ish, all the way through high school. And some of the things or ways that we do that here in the diocese are we have summer programming, like many dioceses do, and ours consists of Totus Tuis, which you may be familiar with. It's a national or nationwide program. Camp Summit, which is something that we do locally here in Winona, Rochester, and it's a middle school Catholic adventure camp that utilizes a leadership structure for high school students, college-age kids, and adults. And then we also are blessed to host one of the Steubenville conferences here right in Rochester at our Civic Center. So a lot of my time is spent coordinating or figuring out how do we make sure those events are successful, those programs are successful. We do some other things throughout the year when they come up, like March for Life, NCYC, some retreats here and there. But when my time isn't spent doing those sorts of things, those programming sorts of things, much of my time and energy goes into leading workshops, conferences, and then supporting all of our coordinators and directors in the parishes. So we'll have meetings together, monthly support groups that we're trying to get going and active. And then I try to do a lot of individual parish visits with coordinators and directors and priests if they're open to that. So I can better listen and understand them. I can get a sense of what their resources look like. I can see their physical church, go visit them. Our diocese is really long and narrow. So to go from one end in Winona or Lake City all the way over to Pipestone, which is South Dakota border, it could take up to I think 4.5, maybe even 5 hours.
Yeah, it's drawn out. It's like you laid a pencil along the bottom of Minnesota. That's the diocese.
That's right. Yep.
Well, it sounds like you're working really hard. You got a lot of things on your plate. And I just got to ask on behalf of our listeners, because if they pay attention to what's going on, kind of on the bigger picture of the church world, they may remember the name Winona because you guys have
Hmm.
Bishop Robert Barron now there in your
We
diocese.
do.
He's your bishop, right? And I just got to
Yes.
ask, because it seems like when you have a bishop like that, maybe you're working too hard. Can't you just like lift up your feet and let the river of life-giving water that is Bishop Barron carry
Yeah,
the
yeah.
whole diocese?
That's funny that you say that because I feel guilty when I see everything that he does and
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff that he's involved in, all the things he has his hands in. I feel guilty if I'm not at least trying to work half as hard. So do we ride his coattails a little bit? Of course, right? Like why not? Because he's such an effective communicator and is able to transmit the truths of the faith in so many different capacities, right? Obviously online, but when he's in person is great and magnetic, as you could assume, but very attentive and very pastoral. So it's easy to kind of let him step in and have him do his thing. My task, I think, is to figure out, okay, how do I allow his vision for the diocese, what he wants for us here, to influence the way that I work with the parishes and their coordinators and directors, um, and kind of trickle down to them. Since he is so busy, right? Like he can't get to every parish all the time. Um, it's a challenge, or maybe a little bit of an invitation for me to figure out how do I get his message to them.
I was going to ask, has he articulated a clear vision for the diocese?
Yeah, he has with our staff, and
Mm-hmm.
as he goes throughout the diocese, he does share glimpses of that. If I mean, if you want to get really down to the basics, wherever he goes, he'll talk about the need to better evangelize and then increase the number of our seminarians by increase it twofold. So he wants to double the number of seminarians. Those are his two big things that drive everything that he does here. How do we better evangelize? And he'll put that in the context of how do we get people in the pews? Um, I think that our stats right now are like 18% of the Catholics in our diocese are attending Mass regularly. And he says that's pitiful. And it is, right? It's horrible. He just
God bless him.
mentioned
But
that,
like, God bless him for
right?
using real language to say, like, no, this is
Hmm.
bad. Like, these aren't good numbers.
Yes.
We could do better. We should do better. We need to do better. Yeah,
Yeah.
good on him.
And if he, who knows how long he'll be here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether he's here another 20 years or another 2 years, he would say if we don't increase that number, that 18%, he says, let's try for 25. And even that's not good enough. But if he doesn't do it at least a little bit, he will likely see himself as a failure. He's like, this is not good. And he often tells the chancery staff and parish staffs, like, if we don't get that up, we are failures. We're failing our people, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, the numbers aren't awesome, but like to have that,
Yeah.
the burden of the weight of souls, like to
Hmm.
have that on your shoulders, that I genuinely believe that is something we need to get back to, is realizing like we're not just running programs. We are stewarding
Hmm.
souls, and we're not just accountable to the ones we get across the finish line, right? We're accountable to the ones that we let slip through the cracks too. Like we have to feel
Yep.
that burden a little more and allow that to fuel us to buckle down and look at like the actual concrete things that are in front of us that we can take action on, and then to really assess, like, yeah, discern from the Lord, but then really assess, okay, what do I actually have the ability to affect here and now? And that comes down to the evangelization. That comes down to that piece. I can evangelize in this moment to these people, but I have to do it in effective ways. I have to do it
Yep.
effectively. And so, yeah, let's transition here a little bit, because you're stepping into this role
Okay.
then in a specific context with this great vision in front of you. What does that mean? Because I come from the diocese, and I know that rural parishes are being grouped together. They're no longer just these individual parishes, but they're often groupings of individual parishes, or there's like more complicated leadership structures where it's 5, 6, 7 churches that are now one parish grouped together. What does this look
Mhm.
like on the ground right now? And like, how are pastors and staff then responding to these changes in light of this vision that Bishop Barron has kind of put in front of you?
Yeah, I would say the last decade or so, the diocese has started to really move toward those parish clusters, and it's come with a lot of pain, as you know, as I'm sure many of your listeners know. You know, uh, closing a church is difficult and very painful. Um, so I am hoping, and I think of it. I think our vicar general in particular is hoping that that phase is kind of slowed down now that we have done as much consolidating as we hopefully will have to do. Say your question again, John. I'm
Well,
sorry.
just yeah, how are the parish and staff responding to those changes? Because yes, these changes have been made now for the most part. So how are
Hmm.
we leading parishioners forward in that, so that it's not just
Yeah.
staying in this stage of hurt, but moving
Hmm.
forward with this vision that the bishop has given you?
Yeah. I've seen a lot more collaboration, especially in the western side of our diocese, where population is even dwindling. You know that probably was the catalyst for a lot of the parish closures, population, lack of priests, etc. Right. So I'm seeing a lot more collaboration among parish staff.
Hmm.
The priests that we have in our diocese are starting to do a better job of finding community among themselves, gathering together so that they can support each other. And our staffs are doing something similar. So I think about our Worthington deanery where your mom is. They're probably our best, and a lot of their coordinators gather together
With
on a
her there,
monthly
I'm not
basis.
surprised that they're the best.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
go on.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, no, but it's true. She has a servant heart for sure, and is somewhat of a leader out there because she's been doing it for so long. And there's a good number of people out there that do have some experience in parish ministry who know it was like before, but who also know that this is a new reality. We need to find ways that we can share resources first of all, uh, and figure out, okay, how do we adjust to this new reality of maybe not having a priest as present as he used to be. But also, I think one of the other things is how do we really walk with and form those who are catechizing our young people with the consolidations and the population decrease. They're finding it harder and harder to get good volunteers who can commit to faith formation, can commit to leading small groups, even doing youth ministry events. Couple that with changing family life too, when most parents are both working and just unable to give the time that they maybe used to when one parent wasn't working and was a little bit more able to volunteer or give to the parish. Our coordinators are talking about all those things and trying to figure out how do we better navigate these new realities, mostly by collaboration, talking with one another, trying to share those resources like I mentioned.
So how, I mean, what when you're looking forward, then what are some of the things that you see like as these structures are shifting, as these leadership things are changing? What is your advice to them in that, as far as like structure? Do we need to shift the paradigm? Is that part of the conversation that's going on of like how we do formation? Do we need to shift that paradigm, and what's that conversation looking like?
Yeah, that's a good question because I have been more and more convinced that, and you probably know this too, that this typical faith formation on Wednesday night for an hour and a half just isn't cutting it anymore because of family life and so many other factors. I've really been trying to encourage all of our coordinators, whether they're rural or more of our suburban areas, to let's start taking a look at how do we reach students and families in places where they already are, where they're already spending their time, and how do we bring formation to those places. So, a concrete example, and I challenged our catechists or our coordinators and directors to do this late last year. As they're thinking about preparing for this coming year, can you take some of the time, maybe 10% of the time that you would work with your regular Wednesday night catechist or Sunday night catechist, and invest that time in maybe somebody who is a coach at the school or a parent who is involved in some sort of um, after school program activity? Maybe it's even a teacher at a school who's with the students, on a much more time than most parents are even with their kids. Can we start shifting some of our resources to train them on how to disciple within those areas? So a coach per se could very easily lead his or her team in prayer, maybe even include a Bible study. Obviously, not forced upon anybody, but an invitation to those students who they're working with on a regular basis, most of the times every day. How can we integrate formation, bring the faith to those students where they are, and have more emphasis on those sorts of practices, and maybe less. I don't, maybe not less, but uh, at, at least something different than just focusing everything on Wednesday night.
And I love that you said that. And I even tend to go to like the extreme in there. And so you rein me
Hmm.
back in if I'm going too far. But when I hear that,
Okay.
one of the things that I have often said is not, and it's not forget the kids. Like people always think I'm just saying
Hmm.
like scrap everything with kids programs. But instead of the focus being on the kids, like,
Hmm.
yeah, bring them in, but make the focus the adults.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
best case scenario, like if a kid starts at baptism and they're in some kind of programming, you've only got them for
Hmm.
18 years, but you compare that to the adults that live in the community and they're going to be there their whole lives, maybe 40 years plus that they're there in your institution, they're in your community, to feed into those people and to figure out how to create in them the wellspring of life-giving water instead of trying to be the wellspring yourself for everybody, because what it does is it multiplies your efforts. I mean, this is just like the basic focus
Right.
model, right? Is you got to invest in the few and then send them out. And I just see that even like, yeah, a kid might go through your programs in a rural community and maybe come back and farm or do something like that. But most of them are going to leave and they're going to be somewhere else. And
Hmm.
so as far as your investment, it's not a waste of investment, but if you invest in their parents and their parents are dialed in, their parents will continue to disciple them after they leave. So it's actually a farther reaching model, and to consider what
Yeah.
that looks like. And I love that you identified the teachers too. That's something we talk about in our workshops that we do with Catholic ministry
Hmm.
professionals, is to take time to like a rule of life and a rule of work and put those in place. And a part of that rule of work is identifying 2 or 3 specific adults that you need to invest in for the sake of the ministry to which you have been called. And it's
Hmm.
people get really worked up because they feel like, oh, that's so strategic. It feels kind of slimy and manipulative. But the truth is it's not. It's just intentional. All it is
Yeah.
intentional. And you can't form any relationship. You can't do real discipleship without being intentional with relationships. And that's whether you're being
Right.
intentional with your kids and you're just looking for that opportunity to sprinkle in a little bit of the gospel or that life lesson that you know they need. Like that's not
Hmm.
manipulative. That's intentionality in the moment.
Right. And Jesus was everything, right? Especially intentional,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
absolutely.
You made me think about something else that we've been
Sure.
encouraging, and that our coordinators and director, we don't have the magic bullet yet. I don't know if anybody does. There have been some great strides in this area, but we're trying to navigate and struggle through it a little bit. It's how do we form our parents, right? Um, and I think spending time with them, focusing on them is crucial, right? Because, like you said, a parent who understands that it's his or her number one job to disciple his or her children will bear way more fruit than an hour and a half on a Wednesday night where they drop their kids off for faith formation, right? And it's not, I think we get in a trap sometimes, at least in our diocese, and maybe this is true other places. There's lots of family formation programs out there, which are great and good. It's a step in the right direction. But what I'm finding is they're they're really just taking let's do what we would do in faith formation and just have the parents lead it at home. I think what's needed and what we're going to try to do more and more here in the diocese is to form parents in how do they ritualize their family life? How do they baptize family life so that it's not just an intellectual formation that they're trying to impart to their children. It is a way of life, right? It's teaching young people how to live their Catholic faith day in and day out, hour by hour even.
Have you read that report on American Catholic religious parenting by Notre Dame? Like that's what's exactly in that report. And I read that and I just started taking snippets of that and like feeding it to the parents overtly and like subversively, like just sprinkling that in and telling them, because what it actually says is that your child's religious outcomes have almost nothing to do with everything that happens at the church. It has almost everything to do with what happens in your home. And when you do that, like this formation, like, yeah, they need to learn the things and we need to teach them. And the father's going to do some of that from the pulpit. But it's like, we got to give them real tools, real meat, like something to take home. And that's little things like having a crucifix in every room. Maybe you have a little holy water font in all of their bedrooms, and that's an opportunity to teach them to bless themselves and how that reminds them of the baptism. And it just makes their life Catholic. It's not teaching them about being Catholic, it's making their life Catholic. Our parish did a really cool thing, and sometimes my parish is the biggest example of where I always see things going wrong. So I'm sorry, guys. I always call them out on the podcast. But they do some really good things too, and I don't give them enough credit for that. For this year of this Jubilee year that we've been in, they put together, there's some pilgrimage sites in our diocese, and they put together like a pilgrimage. It's Trinity Heights is the name of the place. It's a beautiful little park area in Sioux City, and it's got this giant statue of Jesus, a giant one of Mary. It's got a life-size wood carving of the Last Supper. I mean, it's just a beautiful spot. But it is one of the pilgrimage sites. And so they put together this whole like package of things that you could do as a family to go on pilgrimage. And they offered to lead groups of families and stuff. But we have a group of families from our church that we hang out with all the time. We thought, well, let's just go and do that. And it just was this most beautiful thing. And what struck me is our kids are running around this park and they're playing, but it's a Catholic park. It's like thoroughly Catholic. And they're asking really great questions like, hey, what's this statue? Who's this guy over here? And we don't know all of them, but we're able to just read off the plaque and kind of teach them. And we're going intentionally and leading our children in a prayer, and I know I have a cursory understanding of indulgences and how they work, and I do my best to kind of flub through it, but that's all it needs to be. Like, we are trying to make our lives thoroughly Catholic. And the church, other than providing the resource to do it, the church didn't do a whole lot, and they didn't need to. We didn't need them to. We're a little bit of self-starters, but yeah, it's just like, you nailed something on the head there. It kind of pricked me in the heart.
Yeah, I'll share. Do you mind if I share something a little bit personal that's happening right now?
Absolutely. The more the better.
Okay. I have a 11-year-old daughter. She's going in 6th grade, first day of school today. And she didn't get into the class that she thought she was going to, or didn't get the teacher she thought she was going to have. And all of her friends, her good friends, are in the other 6th grade class. And she's one that has more recently been struggling with just, I don't know if I want to say anxiety, but definitely worrying a lot about life. And I don't know how to help her. I don't know what to do really, other than like, suck it up and you'll be fine.
Come on, Buttercup.
Yeah, right. But the last few nights, she's been having a hard time sleeping. And it dawned on me that I had never been exposed to this until Hallow decided to do it. I think for Lent 2 years ago, they they did a series on the Surrender Novena, and I had gone through that and had been exposed to it, and have taken on that practice more and more so in my own spiritual life. And for whatever reason, praise God, He brought that to mind when the other night when my daughter was struggling sleeping, and I'm like, you know, this is not just a mental battle. This is also a spiritual battle. So can I introduce her to that? Introduce her to the novena and just giving over everything to Him. And I'm not going to say it helped magically like that, but she has been sleeping better the last couple of nights. And just bring it up because I want to get parents to start thinking about, how do I really walk with my young people, with my children? And I think that's one example of sharing one's own spirituality with them, bringing them into the practice of the faith, letting them know that Jesus isn't magic. He's not going to fix it immediately, usually. But He is there, and he wants to be in relationship with you. And here's a tool, a way that we can do that. And we can do it together, you and I, and my wife and daughter all together.
That's the great gift of exposing people to more and more of what's in the church's tradition and history of having these prayers,
Mm-hmm.
is because it runs the entire gamut of human experience by now.
Mm-hmm.
So jubilation or desolation, right? Consolation or
Right.
desolation. I mean, there's something in there for literally everybody. And especially if you are a parent, and I love that, and I would give that shout out, is like, if you are a parent and your child is struggling with X, Y, or Z, try to find something in the church that speaks into
Mm-hmm.
that, and hand it to them. And not even
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, don't just hand it to them, do it with them. Enter into
Do
it
it
with
with them.
them,
Yeah.
right? That's compassion, right? Suffering with, that there are real answers. That I love that. So as you're like wrestling with this, as you're looking to implement it, as you're considering, have you been hearing from families about any of this stuff, or like how it's been resonating with some of your parishioners or the people who are in your diocese?
Um, a a little bit. Some
Mm,
of the tools that we've offered as a diocese, I would say a few of the parishes have tried to implement a little bit. And I think probably more so the comment that I've been getting so far is, I never thought that I, I I needed to get out of that paradigm. And whatever tool we provided kind of helped the coordinator and director think about, well, here's how I'm going to encourage families a little bit differently than I ever have before. Or we're going to make it a point to uh, take time out of our year and gather families, kind of like what you did at the park with your families, and do more of that sort of stuff that is helping to form them spiritually, helping to form them as disciples. Not that it is ignoring the intellectual avenues of the faith, but taking it and integrating it more deeply into just natural rhythms of life and spirituality.
I
So
think that's
yeah,
so good.
that does that answer your question?
No, that's absolutely great. And I just want to talk about too, because I think one of the things when I prompt people at our workshops to like consider what the Lord is calling you to, I always talk about the minimum like viable change with the greatest missional impact. Like, what's the
Mm,
one thing you could change?
yeah.
Small
Mm,
change, big impact. What's that change? And people always come up with, I need to start a new ministry.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, no. That's like, I am not talking about, like, unless you're going to scrap something now, you don't need to add another ministry to your plate. What I'm talking about is like, where's the 15 minutes that you really need to invest in? And it's
Mm,
probably the 15 minutes before your event. Have everything ready so that you are fully present with your people, right? What's the
mm,
one
mhm.
change? Here's one of my favorite ones is I think that everybody who works in ministry should have at least a $1,000 line budget for them to take people to coffee. That's it.
Oh yeah,
And
big
then
time.
once a
Yep.
week, once a week you're committed. Like you've got to schedule this day, this time, or like it's like every lunch, but one of those lunches
Mm-hmm.
each week, I'm getting a parishioner in the room because you'll have real conversations you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have otherwise when you're, like we all send out
Yeah.
the emails and we're like, hey, let me know what you think. But nobody's reading that line. Like they're bored by the time they're halfway through your email. So like send an email or a text to someone, say, hey, let's grab coffee. I really want to hear your thoughts on X. Right. And then have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation,
Yeah.
evangelize them in the context.
Yeah. I think a lot of my coordinators and directors in the diocese would hear $1,000 and they would kind of laugh at that, right? Because some of them don't even have $1,000 in their budget.
Mm.
But I've started to get them to try to think a little bit more creatively about how would I be able to do that well, right? So is it going to parish and asking for gift cards to the local coffee house or something like that that can allow them to do that sort of work with their people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
You have to ask for that money too. I mean, like that's all part of it.
Yep,
That's part of
you
being a
do, you
professional
do,
too.
yeah.
Is like you see an area where there's need, you got to advocate for that area of need, and it's not about getting yourself free coffee, but you could probably
No,
get
no,
the local coffee shop to donate those gift cards, right? You could get, like you said, I think you said parishioners to donate the
absolutely.
gift cards to the coffee shop so that they could take people out. I mean,
So
those
I
are
can
real
take it.
opportunities. I think those are, they would do that. Parishioners love a new idea and they love to give to a specific thing. So like there's all kinds of opportunities. Like in the midst of change, like there's always opportunities for renewal. And so I just want to give you an opportunity too. Like you've been here in this position for a year and a half. You've been talking
Mhm.
with the parishioners. We've been talking with the Catholic ministry professionals that work in the churches. And in the midst of change, there's always opportunities for hope. There's possibilities for growth and renewal in these parish settings. I want to just give you an opportunity to speak some hope, some renewal to the listeners who find themselves in this setting. Where have you seen this hope? Where have you seen this renewal? Where do you feel that God is prompting you to see great reason for joy?
Well, I'll talk about um, the young people that I encounter at some of our events and some of our programming, and just note a little bit of the shift that I've seen over the years. Um, and it's there's been some media around this as well, that not just here in our diocese but other places. Young people are hungry, right? We know that they always are, but maybe in a way that we're finally realizing that, oh, the church actually does have something to offer here. It has something to offer young people, that hope that, you know, you may be anxious, you may be isolated, you may be depressed, those sorts of things, dealing with all those things that come with our modern world. But the church is has the antidote, right? Jesus is the antidote, and we know that. I think there's been such a great emphasis on Eucharistic revival, and the adults in the church are finally realizing that, hey, look, it's not about me. It's not about what I can do, what all the time that I have to put into this and the energy that I have to expend. It's actually about him and getting in front of him, allowing him to do the work. I see this big time at Camp Summit, which is a Eucharistic focused camp, right? That when young people are put in his presence, he changes lives, right? And young people are thirsting for that. And it could be as simple as that in the parish. If we can get our people in front of the Lord, whether that's in adoration, in the Mass, in community with each other, striving for holiness, he will change things. He will do great things. Um, we just have to get out of the way and stop coming up with the excuses of out of time, I'm out of my budget, I'm too stressed to focus on anything other than what I see right in front of me. I think there's great hope in that it's really not about what we do in our parishes, what I do specifically on my own. Um, it's about him, and with that, I think he has this way of drawing parishes together, drawing those who have been converted, who have been set on fire by him. He brings those people together and uses them to do things that I could never do on my own, right? That I just wouldn't have time for, wouldn't have the energy for. And I'm starting to see that happen, especially through the collaborative efforts of our parishes. I always say to everybody that I'm working with, we're always better together. You know, if we keep isolating ourselves and trying to do it on our own, we're going to get similar results. But if we're able to break down some of those silos, come together, even collaborate with the neighboring city who hates each other, right? Because there's a sports rivalry
Football
between
rivals.
the two football rivals. If we can come together and get out of the way, we're always better together.
Yeah, isn't that the truth too? Because what happens in these parish groupings a lot of times is they don't want to mix because they're not the same.
Right.
These
Yep.
neighboring communities have more in common than anything. But what's amazing and the thing that blows people's minds is if they go to mass in a different
Mm-hmm.
country where all the customs are different and all the language
Mm-hmm.
is different, they go to mass and they realize, oh, what's amazing about this is that it's exactly the same. And so it's how the devil's playing with that nuance of, yes, we're all different, but in front of Christ, we're all the same. We're all one. I guess it would be a better way to say that. We're all one before
We're all one.
Christ,
Yeah.
right? And like that, or in Christ, we are all one, you know? And so like, it's just
Mm-hmm.
this beautiful thing that you're trying to help them to realize and to tease out. And I can't applaud you more for that. And just the truth that the thing that we're offering is the one thing people truly desire, like at the core of their being
Mm-hmm.
in the deepest level. And if we're
Yeah.
offering the thing people need and they're not receiving it, there's something to be considering about, like, what is the mode in which we're trying to deliver it? And that's what we need to address.
Absolutely.
Amen. Well,
Yeah.
Zach, this has been a great conversation, Zach.
Good.
Is there, I'm wondering before we go, is there anywhere you'd like to encourage people to get in touch with you, or if something you're saying is resonating,
Sure.
that they could go to support you or your ministry?
Yeah, you can always find me online at DOWR, Diocese of Winona, Rochester.org. And my email is zrawson, RAWSON, at DOWR.org. That'd be great.
All right. Sounds good. Well,
Any questions or anything that you need, I'd be happy to help.
sounds great. Thanks so much for being with us today, Zach.
Yeah, thanks, John.
And for our listeners, if you're in a parish grouping and you're wrestling with how to make ministry work in this new reality, just know that you don't have to do it alone, right? You can reach out to people like Zach who've been struggling with this for, a few years, who have been kind of entering into this. And at Catholic Ministry Professionals, we also offer workshops to walk with parishes through these exact same challenges. And so you can always schedule a discovery call to start that conversation by visiting CatholicMinistryProfessionals.com/contact. Zach, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, John.
All right. And with that, we'll see you in the vineyard.